When law enforcement announced the seizure of millions of fentanyl pills, it wasn't just another drug bust, it was a window into a sprawling global operation that stretches from Chinese chemical factories to clandestine Mexican labs, and finally, into American neighborhoods. But the deeper reality is much larger. This bust directly exposes the Sinaloa cartel's role as a transnational criminal enterprise, one that thrives precisely because it operates beyond borders, weaving itself into international supply chains, exploiting global markets, and evading fragmented regulatory systems. The DEA's record-breaking operation was a coordinated sweep across 5 states: New Mexico, Oregon, Arizona, Utah, and Nevada, that dismantled a domestic distribution network tied directly to the Sinaloa cartel. This wasn't a local gang effort. It was a transnational pipeline with distribution points embedded across the American heartland. It exposed a vast network that relied on complexity and layers of secrecy to frustrate investigators and ensure the steady flow of synthetic opioids into American communities. What looked like chaos on the streets was, in reality, a carefully orchestrated system, one that drew power from international supply chains, digital secrecy, chemical innovation, and sophisticated financial laundering. The cartel's business model thrives on flooding U.S. markets because synthetic opioids are cheap to produce, easy to smuggle, and devastatingly addictive. Unlike cocaine or heroin, fentanyl production doesn't depend on fields or seasons. It's cooked in clandestine labs using precursor chemicals shipped from abroad. The structure of the cartel's operation was built for invisibility, relying on compartmentalized layers. Couriers didn't know the chemists, and street distributors didn't know the importers. Mid-level brokers communicated only with the layer directly above or below them, ensuring that if one node was compromised, the rest of the network continued operating. By dividing responsibility, the cartel created a maze of cutouts that prevented investigators from unraveling the entire system with a single arrest. Their confidence, built on layers of compartmentalized secrecy, was a flimsy curtain before a storm. The fentanyl precursors, the chemical building blocks for synthetic opioids, overwhelmingly originate in China, where they are produced by both legitimate and shadowy manufacturers. These chemicals are shipped under falsified labels or hidden within commercial trade flows and are often rerouted through third-party countries to obscure their origin. By the time they reach Mexico, their paper trail is tangled, and their origin is almost untraceable.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
This cross-border cooperation among governments is notoriously slow compared to the speed of illicit innovation. Without this pipeline of Chinese precursors, the Sinaloa cartel's vast fentanyl empire would simply not exist. Once the precursors arrive in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel takes control, using sophisticated, clandestine labs to synthesize pure fentanyl and press it into counterfeit pills designed to mimic familiar pharmaceuticals like oxycodone or Xanax. This isn't amateur production. It's coordinated, repeatable, and lethal mass manufacturing. The cartel then smuggles the product into the United States through tunnels, vehicles, drones, and commercial trucks, exploiting busy border crossings by blending their loads with legitimate trade. They fired first with their elaborate supply chain. We simply ensured they wouldn't fire again. The cartel's global reach extends far beyond Mexico. It sources chemicals from Asia, launders money through shell companies and offshore accounts in Europe and the Caribbean, and distributes its product in Canada, Australia, and parts of Europe. The cartel operates like a multinational corporation, but one built on addiction and death. This bust underscored the critical need for international intelligence collaboration. Agents coordinated with international partners who track precursor shipments and financial flows. Where governments stop at borders, the cartel accelerates, using the cracks in the global system as its highway. The cartel also weaponizes international trade systems, exploiting the sheer volume of shipping containers to hide mislabeled chemicals and falsified bills of lading. Meanwhile, drug money moves in the opposite direction, disguised through trade-based laundering schemes and fake invoices. The seizure of nearly $5 million in cash, luxury vehicles, and jewelry meant cartel leaders living lavishly, while American families buried sons and daughters. What took them years to bury took seconds to exhume. Their sophisticated radar, tuned to detect the known, was deaf to the inevitable. The cartel's communication within the network was equally intricate, relying on encrypted messaging apps, password-protected forums, and burner phones. Coded language concealed meaning, making wiretaps useless within days. The financial backbone was equally intricate, with currency swaps, shell companies, and cryptocurrencies used to launder money and conceal profits. The scientific wing continuously modified precursor formulas to stay ahead of regulators. These designer opioids were chemically novel, but functionally devastating. A minor change to a chemical chain could produce a fentanyl analog not yet classified as illegal. This tactical innovation was meant to buy them time. Instead, it left a trail of breadcrumbs for us to follow. This operation wasn't a lucky strike or a random bust. It was the result of a sustained, multi-jurisdictional investigation, carefully threading together intelligence across federal, state, local, tribal, and international lines. Law enforcement agencies across multiple levels had been monitoring the network. Piece by piece, a mosaic began to form from data that once looked like scattered noise. Every seizure, arrest, and tip contributed to a slow but steady unraveling of the operation's secrecy. The very complexity of their system left behind patterns. Encrypted communications had metadata, financial transactions had timing irregularities, and smuggling routes had overlaps. The DEA was not standing still. They deployed advanced non-intrusive screening technologies, high-throughput detectors, chemical sensors, and trained drug-sniffing dogs to catch what traffickers thought was invisible. Scientists use mass spectrometry to identify fentanyl analogs and trace precursors, shrinking the loopholes traffickers sought to exploit. Surveillance and undercover agents infiltrated encrypted groups. The bust also revealed that fentanyl doesn't travel alone. Alongside the pills were 80 kilograms of methamphetamine, over 7 kilograms of cocaine, and 4.5 kilograms of heroin. This was polydrug trafficking designed to hit every type of user, market, and demographic. The cartels diversify like multinational corporations, saturating every niche of demand. The DEA seizure cut across that entire portfolio. The operation was a critical victory because it didn't just intercept drugs, it intercepted potential funerals, devastated families, and community aftershocks. Each pill contained a potentially lethal dose. The single largest stash, 2.7 million pills, was seized in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
Officials estimated that this cache alone represented nearly 1.5 million fatal doses removed from circulation. The entire bust of over 3 million pills represented 1.5 million possible deaths stopped in their tracks. This seizure redefined what large means in the world of fentanyl enforcement. It was different from a bust at the border. It was about taking down a distribution chain already operating inside the country. It's the difference between stopping a flood at the levee and draining the water already pouring through the city. The emotional weight of this story lies in the contrast between what was and what could have been. Millions of pills stacked in evidence rooms versus the imagined alternate reality of those pills scattered across cities, swallowed by unsuspecting users. One reality means life, the other means death. The DEA seizure drew that line and chose life. For traffickers watching from the shadows, the warning is clear. Growth no longer guarantees security. It guarantees visibility. The very scale of their empire became the rope by which they were dragged down. The DEA's actions didn't just weaken an operation, they sent a message that even powerful networks like the Sinaloa Cartel can suffer crippling blows. The bust marked a disruption in leadership inside a cartel network that has long proven resilient to crackdowns. This takedown proves that traffickers are not facing a reactive force, but a patient, relentless one. The longer they operate, the more information accumulates against them, and the more inevitable their collapse becomes. The psychological toll of constant vulnerability is itself a weapon, one that erodes trust and breeds paranoia within trafficking organizations. When the DEA called it a critical victory, they were acknowledging that in the war against fentanyl, every victory buys time, saves lives, and proves that the fight is not futile. The bust is both a tactical win and a symbolic one, a proof point that even in a crisis measured in millions, decisive actions can push the tide back. The DEA's seizure of over 3 million fentanyl-laced pills will be remembered as a historic operation, a line in the sand against the flood of synthetic opioids devastating the United States. It surpassed every previous DEA record, reshaped the benchmark for enforcement, and demonstrated what decisive action can achieve. It is proof that in the darkest corners of the fentanyl crisis, there are still moments when the tide turns, when networks are broken, and when lives, millions of them, are pulled back from the edge of the abyss.